What's going on, YouTube? It's been a minute. It's been a long minute. I haven't uploaded a full-length video in a long time, and I'm sorry. Whole host of technical issues on top of just not wanting to make a lot of videos, but I'm back. And I figured what better way to get started again than to continue my Substance Painter for Beginners video series that I wanted to make a series, that I am now making a series, but back then I didn't make it a series, but it's now a series. So you can check out the original video up here. If you haven't watched that video yet and you're new to Substance Painter, I would highly recommend taking a look at that and just figuring out where you stand inside of Substance Painter, because this video is going to be a little bit more advanced. We're going to go over completely doing a new asset in Substance Painter, not using any like existing materials or textures or anything like that. So this may end up being a little bit of a longer video because it is going to be a pretty in-depth video on texturing, and it's going to be a good look into how I approach texturing new assets, as well as my personal workflow for texturing. So if you haven't yet, make sure you like and subscribe for more videos that are definitely gonna come after this video. But let's go ahead and jump into this because we got a lot of work to cover. Okay, welcome back to Substance Painter. You should be familiar with this at this point. If not, again, check out that other video. It's much more important, especially if you're new to this software. All right, so in the video description, there is a link that is to my Proton drive. That is where you can download this model for this specific scene. So you can follow along. I'm not providing you the textures though, because this is what you have to learn. You got to do this part yourself. I'm not going to give those to you because, you know, where's the fun in that? All right, so the first thing we're going to do, let's go ahead and get our model loaded in the Substance Painter. We're going to go to File, New, PBR Metallic Roughness with Alpha Blend. I usually leave it on that just because that's the standard template that I use. I'm going to go ahead and change our document resolution. I'm going to go to 4K because this is a relatively simple asset. If you have a lower end machine, you can probably work in 2K. You can work in 2K, that'll be fine. So go ahead and go to Select, and we're going to browse. Okay, so in your folder, you should have a couple of different FBX files. You'll have battery FBX, battery low poly, and battery high poly. For this one, I'm going to be working with a battery high poly because it's a battery. It's really not that hard to deal with. Plus, the high poly is the one that I actually UV'd. So we're going to hit OK, load that in. And there's our battery. Beautiful. Pretty simple to get it imported. We're going to go ahead and go do our pre-baking real quick. We're going to go up to bake, and I will go ahead and just bake these at 4K. Again, if you're doing 2K, you can always change this later. Bake at 2K. I'm going to go ahead and bake those textures real quick. All right. Okay, so we're baked and ready to go. So I wanted to point out something with this model. If we look at our UVs here, and we go into our face selection tool, you can see that I modeled this kind of weird, a little bit differently. Also, Substance did this. I don't know why Substance did that. I don't know why Substance does that, but it's whatever at this point. I modeled this very specifically because there are certain things that I want to do with this model in order to build this texture. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to build from the ground up. So if you're familiar with the first video, I showed you kind of the way to just work around in Substance and get used to building your own materials and doing stuff like that. So this is going to follow a little bit more of my standard process. And Jesus, that's loud. All right, hopefully that's better. Okay, so this is going to follow more of my standard workflow. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and get out of this view. So if you need a little refresher, just remember, we can change our views up here. So this is our 3D, 2D view. We can go to 3D only. We can go to 2D only. For now, we're going to go into 3D only because we're going to set up kind of our base metallic material for this. All right, so we'll go to our brush just to get rid of all that junk. Okay, so first thing I'll do is I'll just delete the default layer because it's useless. So I used to leave it, but there's really no point. This is a good point to gather some reference. If you're going to do like a super clean battery, if you're going to do like a really rusty destroyed battery, this is an awesome point to go gather some reference and figure out what you're doing with this. We're going to do kind of a dirty, grungy, nasty battery. So we're going to do something similar to this battery right here. This is just kind of like a corroded, nasty, gnarly battery. We're going to add some rust and some other different things. I want to make it a little bit different than like just your standard like leaking battery. But this is going to let us kind of work with this and kind of age it and figure out how to add some new techniques in. So let's go ahead and start with the base material. That's going to be one of our most important materials because we're going to have to work with that base material throughout the entire process. So this one is actually kind of like one of the more important things to do here. So what we'll do is we'll create a fill layer. And this is just going to be a nice basic layer. We're going to scroll down here in our properties and we're going to turn on roughness and metallic. White is totally fine. Metallic range, we can go from 1 to 0. We're gonna go all the way to 1. This is gonna give us that kind of like aluminum look almost. And then roughness, we can play with how shiny this object is. We know that this is gonna be probably a little bit like aluminum. So we'll go a little bit less than that. Okay, cool. So that handles that. All right, so what's next? So a lot of times what I used to do, I would add a roughness onto this channel, or I would add a roughness material to this channel. I tend to not do that anymore just because I like to have a little bit more finite control over it. So I actually created another fill layer on top of it. And so we're gonna call this our roughness. And we're gonna just make this a really simple kind of rough map. So we're gonna go here, and you'll see that we have a couple of different options. We're gonna actually scroll down here, and we have these kind of black and white spots. This is gonna add a little bit of age to it, and then we can also play with the mask editor a little bit and just kind of degrade this further. So this is how you can actually kind of change the contrast. You can do a whole lot of stuff with this. I'm gonna up the scale a bit. I'm gonna throw in some disorder in there. And then I definitely want to add a little bit more roughness. I just want small portions of that kind of like metal poking through. Maybe a little bit more than that. There we go. I think that's kind of a better look. So this isn't hyper important right now. Like, this is just our base material. Like, we can come back and adjust this all we want to. So what I usually do is I'll do this. I'll create a folder. We'll call this base. Sorry, my keyboard's like way over here, so I have to like shift back and forth a lot. And then we can grab both of these and just drag them in there and then close that. That way we have our base material. It's in a nice little organized folder. We won't accidentally adjust it or do anything weird with it. Okay, so next thing is the label. The way I UV'd this is so that we can do the label really simply. So we're gonna do a fill layer. I think for this battery, I'm gonna try to kind of mimic the Duracell batteries. Don't tell them I said that. Hi, I'm interrupting this video to talk about today's video sponsor, myself. If you don't know, I run a Patreon. That Patreon is what kind of helps keep things going on this channel, as well as keeping me kind of afloat and doing this work, because this takes hours and hours and hours and tons of time out of my week to continue working on this stuff. So if you would be so kind, if you are interested, you get a lot of free stuff. There are Patreon exclusive videos, and there's much more coming, as well as if you want to join on YouTube as a member or Twitch as a member, you get access to those as well. Twitch is a little bit different. I have to figure out how to get you guys access to that, but that'll come at a later date. But if you join as a YouTube member, you get access to all of those things that exist on my Patreon within the safety of YouTube. But Patreon's cool because there's a whole community that's going to grow there. So if you would be so kind and you feel like you can, join at any tier you'd like. You get access to everything. At some of the higher tiers, you're going to get access to some personal workshops as well as personal mentoring. And all of your money that goes into that channel gets used for this channel. It helps keep everything going here, and it helps me keep my content as free and open as possible. So please, if you can, join me on Patreon. I'd love to have you there, and let's get back to the video. So let's go ahead and get that out of that folder because that needs to not be there. So we're going to call this label base. Okay, so this is going to be our label. So what do we need to change here? So first off, let's make it black, and you'll see that that changes the entire object. So we don't want to do that. We really want to just make this its own thing. So we're gonna first turn on, we're gonna first go up here and add a black, I'm gonna go up here and add a black mask. That black mask is going to be kind of our customizable mask now, and then we're gonna go ahead and build it out. So easiest way to do this, especially with this model, we're gonna go into our 3D 2D mode. And then in here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to this icon right up here. This is gonna give us our polygon fill. So you can do triangle fill, quad fill, object fill, and UV shell fill. We're going to do shell. We're going to fill this, and you can see how that covers everything except for this little ridge. The little ridge is right here. So that should be both ridges. And that is both ridges. Okay, so you'll notice as we're looking at this, we have a slight issue. Our roughness is coming through. We don't want our roughness to come through, so we need to go ahead and enable a roughness layer on this. We're going to turn on roughness. That's going to block out that lower roughness. As long as it is above the other one, it's going to kind of cancel it out. The only way that changes is with height and bump maps or normal maps. You'll have to change the blending from linear dodging to normal, and that'll fix that for you. So that's a little tip for the future if you run into it. Okay, so we have our roughness here. Right now, I don't like that. I also don't like how dark it is. So we're going to go ahead and just bring a little bit of color into there. Just a little bit of white so it's not pitch black. And then let's look at how we want to do this. So I know that this label is pretty shiny and shimmery, so that roughness needs to kind of come down a bit. That way we get that kind of plastic wrap look around it. And we're going to continue adjusting this as we go, but this is kind of where we start. Okay, so the next part is we're going to go ahead and add another fill layer. And this is just going to be us setting up our base layers and kind of getting our base materials going. So this is going to be the copper top of the label. So we'll go to black mask. We're going to change this guy to a coppery material. So we'll go... Duracell is pretty bronzy, so we've got that. Okay, let's get that added. We'll go back into our 2D mode, and then let's go right back to our actual face selection. So we're going to select our mask, go to face selection, and we're going to change this to actual face because this is what we're going to start adjusting here. So looking at the battery, I know that the label kind of curves over, so I need to get the top of this and the label itself. So we're going to go ahead and just fill this baby in. And then we know that this ring is probably not going to be filled in. It's not. Is it? Did it get filled in? I didn't. I think it's this one. Go back to shell fill. It's not that one, it's this one. Okay, so it's that one. So quick tip here, you can do X to switch your color to white to black. So I'll go to black and just get rid of all the weird shading that I just did. Okay, so that takes care of that. And you may have seen me moving the light around. You can hold shift and click and drag your light. That's how you change your lighting inside of Substance. So let's go ahead and go to 3D only again. Okay, so we're getting there. We have this neat battery thing going on here. So the next thing is I want to add that little blue strip. So we're going to do, actually probably just going to do this. I'm going to duplicate this layer. So what we can do is we can just right click it and then duplicate layer. And then you can go and clear this mask. So we're going to go clear mask. I'm going to change the coloring on this to a bluish. And then we're going to go right back in and do the same thing. But this time, we're going to just do that strip. So we're going to go back to face mode. I'm going to go... Oh, make sure you change it back to white. I'm going to select the strip. Okay. So there we have it. That's good. Okay, so now we need to start making these look like real things, like part of this battery. So we need to start kind of adjusting stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and go back into my paint mode. This is where we're going to kind of play with these colors a little bit and just kind of figure out what we want to do with them. So looking at my reference, I know that that's not the right copper. So I'm going to come in here. I'm just going to brighten it up a little bit. It's actually a little bit darker. It's more red. Yeah, that's about right. Okay, cool. So there's that. So pretty good, pretty solid. The next thing is we're going to start looking at this blue strip. So this blue strip kind of gradients a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and add that gradient in. We're going to select our mask and add a blur filter. We're going to go to filter, add filters, add blur. And you can see how we can now blur that a little bit. That's honestly a little bit a little bit too crazy. So let's do this. So just a little bit. Yeah, just a little bit of blur so it kind of merges into that black. And then we're going to start by looking at the top here. So let's look at our copper. So right now we know that we don't have really a roughness on there. So let's add a roughness. We're going to select a map. We're going to do this anastrophic striping. It's just a noise map. And so we're going to come down here. We're going to change a couple of things. So the Y mount, we're going to crank that. We're going to change the Y mount by resolution to true. That's going to give us a much kind of cleaner look. And we need to rotate this. So right now, I don't like the direction it's going. I want it to be going straight up the battery. So we're going to go up to rotation, and we're just going to rotate this about 90 degrees or so. just type in 90. Okay, so that's going to give us kind of a different look there. So that gives us a little bit more of like that coppery kind of weirdness. Now the next thing is we want to blur this a little bit. This one's going to be a little bit different because we need to apply it to the actual color. So we're going to go to color. We're going to add a filter. And this filter is going to be the blur filter. So you can see how that kind of blurs that a little bit. We don't want something too extreme, but we just want a little bit of like kind of striping there. Yeah, so that's good. Okay. And then from here we can kind of go in and change the actual material attributes. So we'll add a metal to it. Scroll all the way down. Change that to 1. And then we're also going to kind of play with the roughness here. Now this gets a little bit different because we can still control the roughness values themselves like this. And you can see how we can kind of get that like coppery stripe in there. But we can also create a levels. So what we can do is we can right click on here and then add levels. This levels is going to be how we can individually control different aspects of the roughness or like the shader itself, the material. So we'll go to roughness. And you can see from here we can actually kind of adjust this and just play with this a little bit. And this gives us that control back that we kind of lost. Let's see. Which, in all honesty, I really kind of like the way that's looking anyway, so I'm not going to bother with that anymore. I'm going to leave that as is because I do actually really like that. Okay. So this is where it starts to get a little kind of weird because at this point, nothing's really changing all that much. Like we're changing colors and stuff, but we don't really like have an idea like what our battery is supposed to look like. So I will sometimes take a break and go and add some of the detail work. So for that, we're going to add some detail stamps as well as some text information. So we're going to go right above here. We're going to do a fill layer. We're going to call this white fill. Okay, so this white fill is going to be on top of everything else. We're going to add a black mask. Remember, turn on roughness because we want to negate everything below it. And you can see how this kind of works if I turn that mask on. So you can see when it wasn't on how it just kind of kept everything. But if I go in here now and I paint on this, all of the detail and information below that goes away. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go over here to our alphas. Now, I have a bunch of alphas in here. You may not have the ones that I have, and that's okay. You can always add your own. It's not a big deal. You can find a lot of them online for free. But from here, we're just going to search minus. This one should be built into Substance Painter, so I wouldn't worry about that. So we just need to decide where we want this. And so I want to avoid my seam, which honestly, I can't even really find my seam right now. So I think we'll be okay doing it right here. And then we're going to change the scale on this. So this is probably going to be good right there. Okay, so that's our little minus icon. We want to make sure that we don't have any jitters because the jitters are going to change everything. And then right above this, we want to do a plus. So we're going to do this now. And we're going to just add this. So that gives us our plus and our minus. Now that plus is going to be black, so we're going to change the color on that black here in a little bit. And I'll show you how to do that really quickly. But let's go ahead and add some text to this thing now. So we're going to go here to text tool. As far as fonts goes, I think I'll just use my normal one, which is Bebas New. So what we'll do is we'll just drag that and we'll do a base color. Okay, and so you can see how that creates a little text box. So this is now our new text box. And then we just go down here and we can actually control this. So we're going to call this, we're not going to call this Duracell because I don't want to get in trouble. So we're going to call it Cryptocell. Alright, so there's my own brand of battery. Okay, cool. So this now we can grab here and we can kind of rotate around and do whatever we want to with it. There are manipulators. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit this guy and we're going to rotate. And you can hold shift to snap this. So we're going to snap this 90 degrees. And then we're going to move this down and scale it up. Oops, wrong way, right in the center. Okay, and And so looking at Duracell's battery, because that's my reference, I'm gonna do right there, and just kind of move this right here. So we'll call that Cryptocell. Beautiful. So that's okay. That's our Cryptocell logo. And then what we can do here is we can actually just duplicate this. So I'm gonna go and duplicate the layer, and then move it down. And we're gonna change this font, or we're gonna change this text to Ultra Power. No. We're gonna do Mega Power. Mega Power. Okay, cool. And so we'll follow just kind of the same like design cues. We're gonna shrink this down a little bit, and just to kind of move it up a bit. All right, cool. So we've got our Cryptocell Mega Power battery. And what we'll do, I'm actually gonna change a couple of different things here. So let's go to Advanced. I'm going to change the character spacing just a tad bit, and then we're going to just scale it just to make it a little bit nicer. Okay. Alright, so there's my Cryptocell battery. Okay, so now there's a whole bunch of text down here. So what we want to do then, Ultra Power. Alright, we're going to duplicate Ultra Power again. So we'll go down here and we will duplicate layers. Just move this down. Now this is a little bit different because it's projecting kind of in a weird direction. So we need to change the way that that is projecting. So we can actually just rotate this. All right, so we just want to make sure that those arrows are facing where we're kind of putting this. And then here's what I'm going to do. I am going to copy a bunch of text from a battery. Okay, so I found this text online. This is just going to be kind of basic battery text. I think this is actually for like coin batteries, but it works for our purposes. So I'm gonna go right here and I'm gonna paste it. And so you can see that made that incredibly small, which is kind of a problem. So let's figure out how to fix this. So what you're gonna wanna do is go down each line and just hit enter, because this is a large chunk of text, until we get to where we want to be. Sure, yeah, that works. Okay, we'll scale it a little bit, and we're gonna put this right there. Okay, so this is under consumer laws like Reese's Law. These warnings specify blah, 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 blah. Don't eat the battery. So what I want to do now is change this line spacing a little bit, change the character spacing a tad. I'm just trying to kind of adjust this just a tad bit. Let's scale it real quick. Just kind of fit this in a tad bit more. Okay, cool. So now we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to create a folder, just call this text. We're going to put all of our text layers in this folder. That way we can just kind of stay a little bit organized. So now if we back out a little bit, okay, so we've got our Cryptocell, Mega Power, Ultra, battery warning and everything. So that's good. So that's pretty solid. So I like the way that's looking. So let's do this. We're going to add a subtle detail around the ring of this battery because it needs something. So here's what we'll do. We're going to go here and create a new fill layer. I always work with fill layers. You can do kind of whatever you want to. If you want to do a paint layer, I just don't like paint layers as much because they're not as customizable. So we're going to call this Decal. All right, we'll do a fill layer. Black mask. Okay, so from here, I'm going to go right back to my alphas. And I'm going to find an alpha that I think is interesting enough to kind of flay along the side of this battery. And honestly, I might just go, let's see. I don't know if this is the one with the dots in it. So this one has dots in it, but you know what? I'm going to use it anyway. So, okay. This is where we're going to use the path tool. So we're going to kind of play with the path tool a little bit here. So we're going to just go and create a path. So, it doesn't have to be perfect yet. Don't worry. Just try to get it as like centered as possible. Alright, cool. So you may notice that that looks kind of weird. There's like no... Can't really tell what's going on there. It's because we're not actually using this for the path tool, so you can click it again when you're on the path tool. You can see how that refines that. And we need to change some of the actual settings for this path. So in the brush tool settings, you'll see the spacing option. We're going to crank this up and you'll see what this does. So you can see how that gives us a different sort of spacing. Now we're going to go up here because I want to rotate this right here. So we're going to rotate just 90, just to be exact. Okay, so that's cool. We got that fun little decal in there. And then we're going to change the scale on it because I don't like the way it looks right now. So we'll change the size. Oop. Okay. And then I just want to add a little bit more spacing to that. Actually, honestly, let's go a little bit bigger. Right there. And let's change the spacing a bit so we have pretty evenly spaced. I think right about there should be good. Okay, cool. So we can see that that kind of travels across. Just kind of pull that down a bit. Okay, cool. All right, so we have this fun decal running through our battery. So I want to change the color on this. I don't want that color. I actually want kind of like a lighter blue. So we want something like that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to blur this. So we're going to do another filter. We're going to go blur. And we're going to blur it. And you can see that nothing happens. It's because I put it on the wrong one. I need to do this on the mask. So make sure that if you're using a mask, you apply the blur to your mask. Or if you're using just like the material and like all of the settings are in the material. So if you've set up your roughness and metallic and all that stuff, and you need to blur that stuff like we did with the copper top, that's where you need to apply that filter. Okay, so under the mask now, we're going to go add a filter, blur. And we're going to blur this pretty intensely. I just want to get kind of like this like cool kind of like metallic look to it. And you can see we're kind of bleeding over now, so we want to fix that. So let's go ahead and go back into our material, or back into our mask. We're going to change the sizing on those. Okay, so now that it's blurred, you can see we're kind of leaking over the side a little bit, and we don't really want that. So I'm going to go back up to the decal. You need to reselect your path. You can see that we just need a little bit of adjustment back there. Whoop. Hold on a second. It's going to bug me. Nope. Let's pull that down just a tad bit. Okay. So now, and you can see where our seam is now, which is kind of annoying. Let's go ahead and change the sizing on this. So we're going to adjust the size so we get kind of that nice bluish look to it. Honestly, it might go a little bit smaller. Okay, something like that. It's going to give us kind of that nice weird like gradient look in there. And so from here now we can just kind of play with that blur if we want to. We can make it more intense, less intense, whatever we need to do. And I'm thinking right there is pretty good. Okay, cool. So one of the other things I want to do is show you guys how to kind of work with duplicating paths. So we're going to add 2 strips of white over the top of this. So what I want to do is I'm going to create another fill layer. So this is going to be our white strip. White strip. I'm going to go ahead and go add a black mask. And so what we can do now is we can actually duplicate that path that exists. So if we go here, if we go up here to paths, you can see we don't see anything. But if we go down here, you can see this path. I can right click this, I can copy this path, and go back up to white strip, and I can paste the path. So now we have that path existing on the other layer, and now we can move it. Okay, so you can see how we have just kind of like one line selected there. So I'm gonna select the whole path, and then we can get our movement tools up here so we can actually move this up. And so we need to change this. We don't want this to be this shape anymore. I'm just going to choose a regular box. And then I'm going to take the spacing and just space it really well. We need to go into the material and actually turn roughness on because it's transferring all that information. We don't want that. So I go back in here. And the strip is just a little too wide for me, so I want to adjust that. Make sure your path is selected, change the size. I don't want anything crazy. Cool, so that actually should be pretty solid. Yeah, we're good. So we'll select everything again. Just move it down on top of that. Okay, cool. And then I'm going to duplicate this. So do the same thing here. I'm going to go up to the path, select the path, and then just move this down. Okay. Okay, cool. So you can see how now we have this kind of cool, almost metallic looking gradiented like stripe going on here, and it's got some different subtle details. So that is how we can kind of do that. That shows you how to utilize paths and bring paths into the equation when it comes to creating stable designs across objects. And so now let's go ahead and just kind of start finishing this off and like really getting into this. So I'm looking at this more and more, and I'm realizing that once again, my copper is not what I want. So I'm actually going to tan it up a little bit. That's better. Sometimes you will go through different revisions and you'll decide like, oh no, that's not looking like the way I want it to, so I'm going to go back. So, okay, cool. So that's that. That looks good. Okay. All right, so let's change the plus sign up here to black. So what I can do, which I think is this one, yep. We're going to call this minus, enter. I'm going to duplicate this real quick. Change that to plus, and then from here I'm just going to erase and change colors. So on the plus, I'm going to erase that minus. So we'll go to our eraser tool, just get rid of that, and then on our minus we're going to get rid of that plus. So can't see anything changing right now. That's okay. You can see that if I do that, that's gone, and that's gone. Cool. So now we can go to our plus. We're going to change the color on this to black. Not exactly black, just like, there we go, kind of like the other one. Okay, cool. All right, and so now I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, cool, this is feeling great. What I want to do is add kind of an overall roughness, because this, if you ever look at them, batteries kind of have like a little film over them in a way. So I'm going to go ahead, first we're going to do this. I'm going to select both the plus and minus and move them under text, because I want them to fall under text. So that way that's just there. All of our decals are kind of separate, so right above here we're going to do a fill layer. This is going to be overall, and so we're going to turn off color, we're going to turn on roughness. And so what we can do here is we can actually add a new map, and we're just going to do one of these 3D warbles. Yeah, something like that, that works. Let's see. And it doesn't need to be anything too crazy. Just want to like... scale it up a little bit, and then we got to do two things here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to add a black mask to this. I'm going to go down to the base layer. I'm going to copy this mask, and you could also use an anchor point for this. We'll go over anchor points in a little while, but we're going to go back up here and then paste into mask. This way that roughness is only affecting the label, and then I'm going to do another blur, add filter, blur. Okay, so this should give us control over that now. So now you can see I can blur that, and we get that kind of like fine kind of warbleness to it, but it's taking away too much of my detail, so I want to just pull it back a bit. I want some of that detail to shine through. And you see that if I change the opacity on this, nothing's happening. We need to actually change up here. So we're going to go to roughness, and we're going to change the opacity on this. So you can see how that kind of affects it. So there's our base. We're going to just add a little bit to kind of cut some of that weird lighting, and that gives us a little bit more of like a plasticky feeling, and just adds a little bit more depth to that. And now that I look at this, I'm like, okay, cool. So our label's set up. I kind of want to play with this base metal a little bit, because I'm honestly not liking it anymore. So I'm going to come back down here to my base, go to my roughness, and we'll just start kind of playing with the balance a little bit. I might just kind of tone that down a little bit. Okay. Cool. Yeah, that's feeling a little bit better. It's got that kind of general roughness. So, all right, sweet. So I'm gonna go ahead and go File and Save, because I haven't saved this entire time. And we're gonna save that. Okay, so that video ended up being a lot longer than I thought it would, but that's okay, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this into 2 parts. The next part will come out in hopefully the next week or so. But that gets you over a lot of the stuff that we covered in the first video. It kind of helps you exercise some new workflows and kind of figure some things out. And in the next video, we're going to look at going to further kind of refine and then age this. So we're going to really kind of make this into like a really gnarly looking awful thing. I'm also going to show you in the next video how to make it look a lot better and a lot more realistic inside the viewport, because sometimes it's really hard to tell when you're looking at something like this and you're like, oh, this doesn't look real to me at all. But then you get it into your rendering software and you're like, oh my God, that looks incredible. So I'm going to show you how to make Substance Painter look a little bit more realistic. And then from there, we will kind of continue working on this. But if you made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you haven't yet, like and subscribe, because it does help the channel grow. And I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. As always, if you have questions, please let me know in the comments down below. So with all that out of the way, I will see you in the next one.